Well, you did it. You made it to the end of 2020. You're alive, you're strong, and you're here to talk about Friends. I'm Matt,
I'm Brian.
and we are here to talk about the top three celebrity cameos in Friends.
Wait, I thought this was a appreciation episode for Love Actually.
Gosh, I hate Love Actually. And the fact that you bring it up just makes me want to throw things.
Yeah, I know. I listened to your podcast with Terrence, and that's why I brought it up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you guys have ever watched Love Actually, and I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen the nice thing about Love Actually is you don't have to watch the whole thing to have seen one whole storyline because they like jump between all these different storylines. So the parts that I've seen, I'm like, this is not love. This is creepy, stalkery behavior. Like Colin Firth wooing this girl who barely speaks English and like convincing her to run away with him.
Mhm.
Like, dude, she doesn't know who you are. So like there's not actual consent there,
Yeah,
genius. Yeah, there's a lot of questionable things in that. But.
yeah. But no, as Matt said, we're here to talk about the top three guest stars of Friends. But if I can interrupt one more time, I have to bring up something very hilarious I saw this week, which was a bit of an interview with Larry King and Danny Pudi.
That's an interesting duo.
Yeah. So Danny Pudi, we've mentioned here, played Abed on Community, and he's currently one of the voices on the new DuckTales, the new reboot of DuckTales.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So is Ben Schwartz, who's John Ralphio from Parks and Rec, and I
I
forget who the
did
third
know
one
that,
is.
and I did know what's his name who played one of the doctors and was Kilgrave on Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah, he's not Huey, Dewey, or Louie though.
David Tennant. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's Scrooge. I didn't
yep.
know
So
that.
Danny Pudi and Ben Schwartz and someone else are Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
And some other guy.
Yeah. Oh, it's Bobby Moynihan, I think.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, Larry King it says, "What's a luxury you can't live without?" And Danny Pudi's like, "You know what? I really like really good coffee." And Larry King's like, "That's not a luxury. You can get that anywhere." And he's like, "Okay, I like really good running socks. Like I love having fresh new running socks." And Larry King's getting annoyed. He's like, "No, socks and coffee are not a luxury." And then
Living the simple life.
Danny Pudi's like, well, then what's a luxury I should have?" And Larry King goes, "A private plane?" And then Danny Pudi just looks at him and says, "Larry, I'm on DuckTales. There's no private plane for me."
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a crowd formed outside the studio going, "One of us, one of us."
So, I mean, I want to look up the rest of the interview, but look it up, Larry King and Danny Pudi.
I love everyman celebrities, I guess you can say. You know, people who they're like us. For a while, Jennifer Lawrence was that, and then like Reddit all of a sudden turned on her, and they're like, "We actually hate you."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, my bad."
Sometimes with big celebrities, I'm like, oh wait, I forget. Did we? Do we like them yet? Do they do something crazy? Like, it's hard to keep up with who's done something terrible who we're not supposed to like anymore.
Yeah, I love Chris Pratt, but apparently everyone hates him now.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know.
Well,
But we're
speaking
not
of that,
talking
yeah.
about those. What do you mean, speaking of that? There's no segue of that. Speaking of hating people. So, listen, I'm a millennial. So I grew up on 90s TV.
Mhm.
And, you don't get much more 90s TV than Friends. And so with Friends, one of the things that they did, a lot of shows have done this. A lot of shows have had celebrity guests. But I feel like Friends took it to another level. Their celebrity guests that they had were just fantastic. And so we wanted to have an episode about who are some of our best casted celebrity guests. Now, I want to tell you what my qualifications that I did. There were some that I'm like, I'm not going to include them because of the fact that their role was less because it was like more about the other person. Like, for instance, Jeff Goldblum is hilarious, and I love the episode he was in, but the funny part of it was more about Joey's reaction to what Jeff Goldblum was asking in that episode. So he's not
Yeah.
on my list because it's more about Joey than it was about the special guest.
Yeah.
So that is my big qualifier.
Those two did play off each other really well.
They did. Well, I mean, Jeff Goldblum can play off of like a corpse. He's
Yeah.
just hilarious.
Mhm.
So as is tradition, Brian, you always start us off.
All right.
So go ahead.
talks about Friends being big on 90s TV. So what do you do but maybe bring in another star from another 90s TV show, which is what they did with Jason Alexander, who came in as Earl, the office manager, for one
Yes.
episode.
Before you get into it, because this was one of my top 8. I had like 8 finishers, and this was one that I didn't include because Phoebe's part. Like, this was so much better about Phoebe, although Jason Alexander was funny in a dark humor sort of way.
So Phoebe gets a job at a call center, and she's supposed to sell toner, and she gets Jason Alexander, who's this like dead end job office manager. Like, he's just depressed. He's like, I don't need any toner because I'm gonna kill myself. And Phoebe's got this book of scripts. Like, anytime someone gives you an excuse, you're supposed to. So she's looking through it. Like, there's nothing in here for that. She just goes, "Is that because you're out of toner?" And just Jason Alexander can play a hopeless loser so well, and he realizes that no one in his office. He's like, we've been talking about killing myself pretty loudly for a while now, and no one has even looked up from their desks. And he jumps up. And he's like, "Hey, everybody." And like, I'm gonna kill myself, and he like mimes it, and everyone just like goes back to work. Like, he really is, like, he's worse than Toby and Jerry. He's worse than those guys. Like, they don't even recognize him to make fun of him.
Yeah, and I like Phoebe's reaction to, like, I don't remember her exact wording, but it was ambiguous enough because her boss is walking by, but she's like screaming like, "No, I won't lose you!" And then her boss is like, "New girl's good."
Yeah, and it's funny at the end when Phoebe tracks him down and convinces him that the universe cares about him and all that kind of stuff, and kind of turns it around, and he goes, "See, I don't need you guys to care about me. The whole universe cares." And he goes, "Ah!" And he's just like, I wish they'd care a little bit.
The delivery of that line is great because, like, he goes from up here bragging, screaming to everyone, and then all of a sudden, like, the realist, like, I wish they would care a little bit.
Yeah,
just to Phoebe right there. That's it. That's a good pick. It was in my top 8, but I disqualified it for the reason I had stated. So
gotcha.
All right, my number 3. So I had, like, when I narrowed down to 3, because it was Jeff Goldblum and Jason Alexander, and then I won't say the other one just in case you bring it up, and I can bring it up at the end. I was left with 5, and so my 4 and 5 are really, really close, but my number 3 barely edges them out. And the number 3 was probably funnier at the time, but it kind of aged a little poorly because my number 3 is Brad Pitt.
Oh, okay.
So they bring Brad Pitt on for a Thanksgiving episode, and this was when he and Jennifer Aniston were together as a couple. They were like the couple at the time.
Yeah, pre-Brangelina.
Pre-Brangelina, which is why this ages poorly, because when he's on the show, you find out that, like, he and Ross were good friends in high school, and that he and Ross had an I Hate Rachel club. It was just those two.
And that there was also a foreign exchange student, they said, who didn't realize what was going on.
Right. That's right. But Brad Pitt kind of still has in his heart the I Hate Rachel thing. And so now that Ross is friends with her and, like, she's at the Thanksgiving dinner and he's there just, like, still ready to just have all this hatred towards her.
Yeah.
He's, like, mocking her at the table, and he's taking all these jabs at her while they're at this Thanksgiving dinner. And like, it's making everyone so uncomfortable, but it's so funny to watch because, especially, the background that they're together. So it's so funny to watch these guys who are in love in real life, just him wailing on her. And that's why it ages poorly, because the whole thing with Angelina Jolie was kind of a mess, and you felt bad for Jennifer Aniston and all of that. And then you watch this episode back and you're like, I don't feel so funny in watching it. But at the time, it was hilarious.
It's always tricky to put real life kind of jokes and context into shows because, like, you really don't know if they're still going to be together or what's going to happen.
Well, Tim Allen does so many callbacks to his own career in any show he's in. He's constantly calling back to Buzz Lightyear or Home Improvement or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, his show Last Man Standing, which is actually pretty good, they have so many Home Improvement callbacks. But those kind of callbacks are safer because it's already happened, it's already done. Whereas you're calling back, hey, this is funny because these two are married in real life. And, like, fast forward, like, just a couple years, and, nope, never mind, they're not.
It's very temperamental in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I just remember at one point, Brad Pitt's mouthing "I hate you" to Rachel, but Rachel can't make out what he's saying. She's like, "Oh my gosh, he's kind of giving me these like sexy eyes or something like that."
Yeah, she's totally misreading the situation. It's great.
My number 2 is the only woman on my list, and I think it might be an out of the box pick, but I'm going with Susan Sarandon.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Julia Roberts.
I considered her. No, and honestly, I didn't have much time to like do a ton of preparation, so I don't remember her character's name. But she was on Days of Our Lives as a soap opera actress when Joey was on Days of Our Lives. It's a bonkers premise because the whole thing is
Because it's a soap opera.
yeah,
So-
but they even dial it up again. They say that her character is being killed off, but then her brain is going to be put into Joey. So for a period of time, Joey is on Days of Our Lives playing a woman in a man's body. And he's playing this character that was originally played by Susan Sarandon.
There's a joke there about David Schwimmer doing that for all 10 seasons, but
Oh, really?
of being playing a woman in a man's body.
I can see that. But like Joey accidentally breaks the news to her without her realizing it, and she's like, "Wait a minute!" And she's like throwing drinks in people's faces, like, "Wait a minute, what writer told you that? Was it the bald writer or the tall writer?" And she's just like controls the room that she's in. She even that's a room that's a joke they say is like, you walk into a room and you own the room. And so she's like going ballistic, like, "How dare you fire me and put my character in this guy after I've been playing her for 20 years?" And eventually she warms up to Joey, and she ends up dating him for a little while and giving her tips on how to play the character. But it's just, I don't know, their
And
chemistry.
the tips are funny too. Like how Joey incorporates those into his character is really, and that's a big tribute to Matt LeBlanc because whenever you're trying to impersonate someone as an actor, like it's really easy to do it poorly. And I have a lot of respect for like the ones who do it well, like Jamie Lee Curtis in Freaky Friday. Like my respect for her as an actress increased after watching that movie because I'm like, she just nails it. So so Matt LeBlanc has to do that, but to do it comedically and to also do a caricature of that actress, and it's like a lot of different levels to what he does.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so funny.
It's Matt LeBlanc as Joey, as this woman's character, and he has to like he's playing Joey well because obviously he's a good actor, but he has to play Joey playing her not so well because Joey's not a great actor. And at one point Joey breaks into a British accent, and she's like, "Wait a minute, she's not British." Joey's like, "Wait, I can speak British? I'm putting that on my resume."
It's a great line.
Yeah. That's somewhere in
Joey.
season 6, I believe.
Yeah, I don't have seasons for my celebrity cameos here. I didn't do that much research. I apologize, everyone, but you'll be able to find it if you are fanatic. I think that's what you'd call it.
I feel like I set up an expectation for myself because for the Christmas episodes we did, I had like season and episode numbers ready to go, and now it's somewhere in this season, and I don't know her character name, but it's cool.
It's all right. It's the Christmas season ourselves. We're busy with other stuff. People will have mercy on us, I hope.
Yeah.
My number 2, I could easily see you having this as your number 1, so I'm sorry if I steal it. Mine, I know, is in the last season because he's the stripper for a bachelorette party.
He's one of my alternates, but you didn't steal it.
Okay, good. That's Danny DeVito. See,
yeah.
that is the definition of how to take a character and make the episode about them. Like, he really walked into it, and he demanded the room. Yeah, everyone fed off of him, like Phoebe and Monica and Rachel. They all kind of fed off of him, but he owned it. So what was great about this, if you didn't see the episode, they hire a stripper for the bachelorette party. Lo and behold, at the door, Danny DeVito. And, of course, their reaction to it is what you would expect it to be, like, this is our stripper? Are you kidding me? And so after it's very obvious that they don't want him, then he has a breakdown. He's like, no one wants me. Every time I show up, and like they turn the joke even on its head and they take it into a new spot that is even better where he's self-aware of it. And he's just like, no, I want to perform. I just want to dance. And so like they, out of pity, have him do it and they let him do his thing. And it's a great Danny DeVito role because it's like, this is the last person you want to see stripping in front of you.
I remember the line where he was like, "I may have borrowed this costume from my nephew, but what's underneath is all man." And Phoebe's just like, all man or old man?
Oh gosh, man. I don't have much more to add to that. That's just
At the end, they decided he's going to try to teach the new generation of strippers and kind of become like a mentor to new male strippers.
which is exactly what you want. You know, he's gonna get rich doing that.
I'd like to think he trained Meredith's son from The Office.
Yeah, that connection there. You
Yeah,
know, it's kind of funny because before we get into our number ones, when you talked about like bringing in characters from the '90s, I don't know what it was with NBC, but they like infiltrated all these other shows with their NBC characters, like from other ones. They would just do all this cross referencing. Like in the first or second season, it was early on. They had George Clooney and Noah Weil show up, and
yeah.
they were, I think they were their characters from ER.
They did that with Mad About You too, because Friends wasn't exactly a spin-off, but Phoebe's sister Ursula was a character on Mad About You, so they had a little moment with those characters too.
Yeah, and I know that they did that with Caroline in the City at one point. Like they did that with a lot of these shows. It was just par for the course of like this NBC synergy. We're gonna just have our characters pop up in other shows.
Like I didn't realize for the longest time in this season one of Friends, there's an episode where it's a blackout. I didn't realize on NBC every show that night was dealing with a blackout. It was supposed to be like the shared universe because I think they were all set in New York. And it's like there's a
Yeah,
blackout in New York tonight. Let's see how all of our shows are dealing with it.
yeah. It's a strange thing, and like you know, every now and then you'll see shows redo that now. Like there's the New Girl Brooklyn Nine-Nine crossover a couple
Yeah,
years back.
that was a good one.
Yeah, but it's like they really hammered it home in the '90s.
Yeah. All right. So my number one is he's not just one episode, so I don't know if this is cheating, but I could not put him on my list. He had a little bit of a small arc.
Uh,
He's the Love Machine, Chicken
yep.
Boy, Paul's the Man, Bruce Willis.
Oh man, that was a good arc. He was one of my alternates that I had on here too.
So in season 6, Ross is teaching at a university, and he's dating one of his students, and all of a sudden he meets her dad, played by Bruce Willis. And of course he's given Ross a bunch of crap, like he doesn't approve, like, why are you dating my daughter? Why can't you date a guy your own age? And at the same time, or why can't you date a girl your own age? Well, maybe with Ross, who knows? But he also ends up dating Rachel. And so there's this weird double dating thing where Ross's ex is dating his girlfriend's dad. And it's just weird. Like, they go out to lunch, and Rachel, while Ross is in the bathroom, ends up breaking it to Paul that Ross has been divorced 3 times. And all of a sudden it's just feeding into the hatred of Ross. Like everything he hears about Ross just makes him hate Ross more.
And Rachel just really does it terribly. And then like she disappears, and then she comes back, and then ruins it again
Mm-hmm.
when she gets back to the table. It's like, oh, you told her about, was it? I think Emily was the one at that point.
Yeah, well, he had told her about Carol because he
Oh
mentioned
yeah.
having Ben, and then he came back. Rachel came back, and she's like, "Oh, you told her we were married? Like, oh no, you're talking about Emily." And Ross is like, "I was talking about Carol, but thanks for bringing up all my wives." And then even without Ross there, Rachel and Paul have the scene where she starts to pick at him because he's very much a stoic, like, oh, I'm a guy's guy. I don't need to show my emotions. And then she gets him down to his childhood where he's like screaming, crying about how he was called Chicken Boy as a little kid, and like he just turns into this like weeping mess.
Chicken boy.
Yeah. I think at one point he jumps up and hugs Chandler, and Chandler doesn't know what's going on. Am I remembering that correctly? I
I
think
don't remember that part. I'm sorry.
because then Chandler says like, "Let's go to the movie, you, me, and Paul," probably because Paul's still hugging him. Then there's also an episode where Ross and Elizabeth go to Paul's cabin that they have, and they're about to have like this romantic getaway. Then all of a sudden, Rachel and Paul show up, and Ross has to try to hide in the bedroom so he can't see him. So Ross just like does this really weird slink down behind the door, gets under the bed, and witnesses Paul trying to like pump himself up with the mirror. Like he's undoing his buttons so you can see his chest. He's like, "You're a man. You're the man. You're the love machine." And it's like just all this stuff, which comes up later when Ross kind of uses it to blackmail, and he kind of just says to Paul like, "I too am a love machine," and like kind of mimics the dance that he was doing, and it kind of just breaks the tension.
Yep. And all of a sudden, Bruce Willis has no problem with him dating his daughter. Huh?
Yeah,
Fancy that.
which I think they break up in like the next episode, anyways. But
I think it's 2 episodes after that, which is
yeah,
because she's so childish, and and she's having a water balloon fight with the people in the apartment next to her. And
mm,
then I remember when like he's leaving, it's like she handled that breakup really maturely. Did I make a mistake? And then she opens the window, Ross, and he's like down in the street. Elizabeth, I was just, and then she's like, you suck, and then throws a water balloon at him,
Yeah.
hits him in the face, like, all right, breakup still on.
Yeah, I'm not doing it justice, but every episode with Bruce Willis and Friends is just hilarious. And I think that he did at least one of those episodes for free because he lost a bet to Matthew Perry, who plays Chandler, when they were on The Whole Nine Yards together.
Yep, because Bruce Willis did not think that movie was going to be good at all, and he's like, this is going to bomb. And Matthew Perry's like, okay, I think this is going to get number one. If this hits number one, you have to be on Friends. And he's like, all right, I will. And it hit number one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about all of that, Bruce Willis won an Emmy for this guest appearance.
I believe it. For sure.
So because of Matthew Perry's bet, he gets an Emmy. There you go.
Should thank Matthew Perry for that.
I know. I don't know if he did in the speech, actually. It's very possible he did.
Do you know if Matthew Perry ever got an Emmy or any of them?
Oh, I don't know. I know that they were nominated a bunch, and I know that the show did win a number of times, but I don't know for what categories.
Oh, okay. All right, Matt, what's your number one?
All right. My number one this is hands down. Like, okay, if you would have stolen this from me, I still would have had it as my number one because this is the best to me. My favorite celebrity performance in this show.
All right.
That was when Alec Baldwin was on.
Oh, yep.
I loved his character so much. So Alec Baldwin was dating Phoebe. He comes on and he's like this manic abundance of joy, like sees the life, carpe diem sort of guy. And the way Alec Baldwin plays it is just so great. They kind of did that character a little bit with like on Community with one of the professors.
Professor Whitman.
Yeah, but Alec Baldwin does it so much better, and it's so much funnier. But the thing is like he completely dominates the scenes he's in, and like all the other friends are like, the main cast are just like they're left speechless by this guy. They don't know how to handle this like his huge amounts of energy. And so Phoebe stands up for him at one point when like he walks away and they're all teasing behind Phoebe's back, and Phoebe's like, are you talking about whatever his name was? And so she like makes fun of all of theirs. Like, I didn't say anything about when you were dating so-and-so or so-and-so, and then gets to Ross or Mona, and then she walks away later, and then Ross is like, what was wrong with Mona?
Yeah, Ross was the crazy one in that relationship.
Yeah. So then later, Phoebe is alone with just him, and like he's still that level of intense with just the two of them, and she's like, all right, this is not gonna work.
Well, she describes him as Santa Claus on Prozac at Disney World getting laid.
Massapequa.
Imagine everything that's happened in this ballroom, the mitzvahs, both bar and bat. I have to take a mental picture. Click.
I think I was blinking in that one. Ha! Chandler, you're already my favorite.
Yeah. And he looks at a picture of a dead dog because Monica is on a weird mission to get her parents to cry. And he just looks at it. He's like, bow wow, old friend. Bow wow.
And then when she's like, he's trying to get Phoebe to like try oysters or something. He's like, no, I'm a vegetarian. And like, he's just so persistent. And eventually she tries it. And she's like, well, aren't you going to try it? He's like, no, they're too gross. It just moves on.
I would love to see what they do with this character reacting to 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Like, how would he put his spin in it? If you watch 30 Rock, it's kind of like taking Kenneth and putting him in Jack Donaghy's body.
Wait, because it is Alec Baldwin is in both.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh my gosh. It was he was a delight to watch, just to be so exuberant and this childlike joy that is very out of place and does not deserve to be where it's at.
It's also jarring because it's so opposite to the roles that Alec Baldwin normally plays.
Oh, yeah.
So that hypes it up too. And it's just like someone told him, you're happy about everything and amp it up, overact. And it works.
It worked really well. I was surprised at how much I loved that character. And the funny thing is, like, it's hard with shows when they have an annoying character, but like people will come to the defense like, well, that's the point. The character's supposed to be annoying. See, Alec Baldwin's character was supposed to be annoying, but you liked him. This is that line that movies want to hit with these characters that people perceive as annoying, but you don't want to actually annoy the audience. And he nailed that line.
Yeah. I think it would have been too much if he'd been a recurring character and more than just – I think he maybe could have done a couple more, but I think it's good that he was a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah, you go out on a high note, like George Costanza. Going back to him.
Yeah.
Hey, that was it. That was our top three. So I almost some honorable mentions. I almost wanted to put Greg Kinnear because in the final season, when Ross is dating Charlie, Ross is wanting to get this big grant, and so he goes to do this interview, and he finds out that the interview is being held by Charlie's ex-boyfriend. So I think she tells him to put in a good word, or she says that she'll put in a good word or whatever. But somehow Greg Kinnear's character finds out that Ross is dating Charlie now. And so because he's still jealous, and he didn't know it going into it, he's still jealous and still wants to get back with Charlie. In the interview, he asked him just terrible questions. Like, so there's three people, and he's asking the first two like normal questions. Hey, what would you use this grant for? And the third one, he's like, asked like this off the wall trivia question that no one should know. And he's like, what?
Did he say like when's my birthday at one point too? Or
yeah, I think that was it. So it's like just butchers the interview for him, and Craig Kinnear was just hilarious in how he did that. So I enjoyed his turn.
So one of my alternates I had was Danny DeVito, which we talked about. My other two are both Phoebe love interests. One was Paul Rudd as Mike, because this was actually my introduction to Paul Rudd.
Same.
I knew him first as Mike, and I didn't include him because in the last season he's basically like the seventh friend. He's just there all the time. And then the other one was Hank Azaria, who you might know as half the town of Springfield on Simpsons, as David the scientist.
Yep. See, he's one that like I would have felt okay to bring up because I didn't feel like he had that many times that he was on the show. Like Mike and Tom Selleck, both of them, I was like, that's beyond a cameo at that point. Yeah. That's a recurring character.
Well, Mike is less of a recurring character. No, Dave is less of a recurring character than Mike. But one thing I love, actually, David and Mike scene where they're kind of going back and forth, like, I'm cool. And then David says, like, if you ever come to Minsk, you better watch out. It's like, I might. And then Mike goes, like, I might go to Minsk. And then just turns, well, go in the fall then. It's quite lovely then.
And it was funny because David was about to propose to Phoebe. That whole scene, David was going to propose to Phoebe because Phoebe and Mike had broken up, and I can't remember the reason why they broke up at the time. And then Mike realized, like, no, I do want to be with Phoebe. So he catches up to them at the restaurant, and he kind of sits at the table while David's standing there. And then he ends up proposing to her. Or I don't know if he proposed at that moment. Yeah. But they end up getting back together. And David afterwards is just like, if I would have asked you to marry me first, would you have said yes? She's like, yeah, probably. Yeah. He's like, dang, Russia.
Yeah. Because then Mike's proposing and David's just kind of like, kind of stepping on the toes of what I was going to say.
Yep, that's a good pick. The other one that I would have gone with is someone who he pretty much played himself, or every character that he plays is when Ben Stiller was on.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Stiller played a character that had like rage issues, but you didn't know it at first. You know, he's dating Rachel, and they're on a double date with Ross, and I don't remember who he was dating at the time. They go to the theater.
It doesn't matter.
The girls go to the bathroom, and then they're like, "Oh, these two people might be in our seats." And so Ross is like being polite, like, "Excuse me, you might be in our seats," and the people are like, "Oh, I don't think so." And then Ben Stiller just flips out. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know how Ben Stiller is, how he acts, and so he's like over the top, screaming at him, and like gets him to move. And then he sits down, and then like he's nice and normal again. Yeah. But it's just like it's funny to see him like flip what the things are that he flips out over, and they end up breaking up because he got rage issues.
Yeah. I mentioned a few episodes ago with Jerry Stiller, who's Ben Stiller's dad, who was on King of Queens, and every now and then in King of Queens, Jerry Stiller's character Arthur will talk about how his dad was such a mean guy, and whenever they do flashbacks to Arthur's childhood, it's always Ben Stiller playing his dad's dad. It just works really well.
Yeah, I mean it's funny they've been on a lot of stuff together. They've been in more together than like Will Smith and Jaden Smith, I think. Because I remember they were in Zoolander together. They were in Heartbreak Kid, I think was the name of the movie. They're in Heavyweights together. They're quite frequently either related or like father figure, like in Zoolander.
Speaking of people who are related, do you want to jump into your trivia from last week?
Absolutely. So last week, I have not posted last week's episode yet, so we haven't had anyone who's been able to respond to our trivia questions because you haven't heard the episode.
Nope.
Sorry. But I asked the Hey Arnold creator, Craig Bartlett. He is brother-in-law to what other famous show creator? and that is Matt Groening, the creator of both Simpsons and Futurama. And I think he's had some other shows that people don't care about as much. But those are his biggies.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. I didn't know that.
yeah, he's his brother-in-law. Now, this one you might know. So, speaking on Friends, we're going to stick with that. I was thinking of having some sort of trivia that related to the Bruce Willis thing about being on a vet, but we talked about it already. So, I've got another one in my back pocket. So, you might know that Jennifer Aniston was the last friend to sign on. She was the last one to get casted as Rachel. And actually, someone was casted as Rachel before Jennifer Aniston. Do you know who was casted? Who was cast? Casted is not a word. You know who was cast as Rachel before Jennifer Aniston?
And bonus points, who did that actress play on Friends? Because she was also in a couple episodes of Friends later on as a guest appearance.
So there you go.
Should we talk about next week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we need to do that.
All right, so next week we have an idea. I came up with it. So if you don't like it, just blame Matt. Still blame Matt.
And if you do like it.
I would like all of the credit without any of the blame. So me and Matt have coordinated shows the TV episodes that we each like that the other one has not seen. So if you want to watch along with us, I'm going to be giving Matt an assignment of a show to watch. He's going to be giving me one to watch, and we're going to come back next week. And Matt, I'm not going to watch any other episode before or after the one that you give me. I'm going to go into it blind, and I'm going to not look up any trivia. So if I'm lost, I want to, on the recording, ask you any context questions I have. That's how I'm going to do it.
Sounds good. I'll do the same for you, but I don't think your show is going to have the same, like, you need to watch other parts before you get to this part.
Yeah. So I'm going to have Matt watch an episode of The IT Crowd, which is a UK show, and it's in series 2. They call season series over there, and it's called
Britain.
Yeah. It's called The Work Outing, which is an interesting episode because most of it, obviously, as you can see, takes place outside of the office. But it's just one of the funniest TV episodes. This is the episode that got me hooked on that show. So I'm excited to see if you hate it or if you can see the light and like this episode.
Now, my show is also but it is in season 2 over here in the colonies. We call them seasons.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 11 of Chuck. And I find this ironic because this actually is a Christmas episode. We just talked about one of the top 6 Christmas episodes. Mm-hmm. I watched it to make sure, like, actually you'd be able to jump in and really fully appreciate the episode without having much context. I think you had said you'd seen maybe one episode of this show.
That's like 10 years ago, so I'm still blind.
So there might be something like, oh yeah, I remember something about this, but it's vague enough that, or I mean, it's removed enough that you don't need to watch other episodes.
Yeah.
But it's got, oh my gosh, what is his name? Reginald Val
Johnson?
Val Johnson. He's a guest star in this one. Also, nice. Michael Roker is guest star in this one as well.
Is that Yondu?
Yondu, yep.
Yep, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's it. So it actually probably should take my number 6 spot for best Christmas episodes because I watch it. I'm like, I miss this show.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and watch it. So I'd like the whole series again.
Yeah. So we were discussing what episodes to give, and I told Matt it was between an episode of IT Crowd and an episode of Gilmore Girls, and he said, just so you know, I hate Gilmore Girls. But the episode of that I would have picked is similar. It's just a feel-good episode. You don't need to have much context. So I think it's safe to say if we ever do this again, I'm going to make Matt watch Gilmore Girls.
Jeez. We're never doing this again.
We'll see.
There's another episode that I remember that I really liked of Chuck. That's a great standalone episode, but I feel like it would ruin if you liked this episode, you're like, I want to watch all of Chuck now. It would ruin early season stuff. But there's like one in like season 4 that is it's pretty much a Agatha Christie, like, and then there were none murder mystery type. But it's because it's Chuck. Chuck is a fun loving show too. So they have kind of a silly spin on it. And It's just a well done. It's the bottle episode. It's a well done bottle episode.
We should do a bottle episode sometime.
I can't talk to you now. I'm doing a bottle episode.
That's the one I was thinking of.
That's a great. I mean, you don't get much better bottle episode than that one.
Except maybe, could I be wearing any more pants or clothes?
See, you took 2 that were on my top. So sometime once you had forgotten about that, then we can go back to that.
Yeah.
about episodes.
Or we'll just talk about those 2 episodes because that'd be a good episode too.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, yeah, like I said, if you guys want to follow along too and watch one of these shows, they're both pretty funny shows. I know people have said IT Crowd's great, so I'm sure it's going to be hilarious. And Chuck has a lot of great. It's so many different tones, including comedies.
Yeah.
So.
And the IT Crowd is on Netflix, and then Chuck is on Amazon Prime. If you have those, you can watch along with us.
Yeah, and if you're lame like me and you use the public library, that's free. They might have seasons of DVDs. Our library has so many DVDs, like between seasons of shows and movies, that has so much stuff there to get for free. So.
Cool.
Libraries, who knew, right? Well, I think that's all we've got time for today. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.